What year did you graduate?
We are reconvened at 7:47 p.m. Ms. Miller, the floor is yours.
Good evening. On behalf of the Romulus Board of Education, I'd like to introduce Dr. Charles Chuck Munkachi, and I'll introduce you to the board members. President Robert McLaughlin.
Good evening, sir. Nice to meet you.
Vice President Teresa Beard.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Secretary John Thede. And Treasurer Cheryl Buckley. And then the trustees are Danielle Funderburg, Sandy Kraut,
Hi, how are you?
and Tamika Bowles. Just for the record, I'd like to give a brief outline of the format we're going to use this evening. The interview will take somewhere between 60 and 90 minutes. At the end, there will be an opportunity for questions from the audience, if there are any. Also for our candidate, Dr. Munkachi, to ask questions of the board, a few. And then a closing statement, if you so desire. The superintendent feedback forms and question cards are available for the audience to complete and are located at the table in the back. I'll be here to pick up those question cards, and I will review them to make sure that the questions can be asked legally, and then pass them on to the board for their consideration. The board will consider comments if the forms are signed, and the task of choosing the next superintendent is the responsibility of the board as representatives of the community. The board appreciates and seeks the input of staff and community in the process. While the board is not seeking recommendations as to which individuals should be hired, they are seeking your input as to strengths and the concerns about each candidate. Please keep in mind the issues the board will use as the basis for forming their hiring decisions. They are printed at the bottom of the form. Also keep in mind that all forms, once accepted by the Board of Education, are received become a public document. With that, we'll go forward.
Welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening. I have your first question. While we have had the opportunity to review your resume, our audience has not. Would you briefly review your educational background and also your employment history?
Well, first, thank you for the opportunity to meet you tonight. I had the opportunity to stop at the Romulus house. I had to choose between the homemade chicken pot pie or the peach cobbler. Raise your hand if you think I chose the chicken pot pie. How about the peach cobbler?
Peach cobbler.
Yeah, that's it. But I'm delighted to be here tonight, and what I'd like to do is very quickly, but it will go maybe a little longer than the 3 minutes, 13 seconds kind of answer for the first question. As far as my involvement in college and then professional experience. I am a Wayne County boy. I chose to go to Wayne State University because I wanted to go to a diverse school. And I sang in the Wayne State Glee Club. We traveled all over the world. We competed in the Eisteddfod in Wales. And there's nothing like having 10,000 people give you a standing ovation. And there were 40 of us in this fraternity of brothers who sang in 8 parts. For those of you fine art buffs, I know at least a couple of you are. And we sang all over the country. And also during that time, I began my teaching career. Met my wife, who was a kindergarten teacher. She since has become a freelance writer. She writes humor. I've given her a lot of material over the years with my various positions. But during that time as a teacher, I learned that, wow, teaching was in my DNA. It was my passion. It was not a job. I never thought of it as a job. And I still think of myself as a teacher, no matter what I'm doing. And after receiving my bachelor's, going into that teaching career, I went on at Wayne State to get my master's in leadership. And from that point, went to the University of Michigan, earned my doctorate in administration and supervision. Yes, we are a house divided, the Munkachi residents. My wife and younger daughter graduated from Michigan State. They bleed green and white. I saw one board member go, yes. But just as with boards and superintendents, we can have disagreements, we can agree to disagree, as long as we keep it on friendly terms. So we've stayed together as a result. Through my national experience as a superintendent of schools, I've been involved in school districts as a superintendent, ranging in size from 1,100 to 7,500 students. Rural, suburban, urban, diverse. I love to be involved in diverse school districts with diverse staffs and diverse student bodies. It's a richness that needs, I just wish everybody had that experience. I've learned over time to become emotionally intelligent, to learn how the pieces to that jigsaw puzzle go together, because that's really what we do as superintendents. We try to solve problems. We work in concert with the Board of Education to make good decisions, to provide solid direction. After serving in those school districts in Michigan, I also went to Connecticut, where I was a superintendent, and that was in Groton, Connecticut. And it was a great experience. Began the first IB program of any public school district in Connecticut, the diploma program. By the way, in Mount Clemens, I began the first middle school or middle years program with the IB. We became a world-class school district as a result. Guess what? All middle school students were members of the middle years IB program. It is not for the sorting, sifting, selecting kind of thing. What's good for those that are sorted out and sifted out and selected out is good for all the kids. Some kids just simply take a little longer to learn than others. But computers, as we know, is the great equalizer. And I can't wait to talk about that in some other responses to your questions. It's the great leveler. But in my fourth year as superintendent of Mount Clemens, Jalen Rose, the member of the Fab Five in Michigan, he had a dream, and that was to build a new high school, a new innovative high school in Detroit every 3 years. He needed somebody to launch that effort, somebody with credentials, background experience, national experience. After a lot of debate on the home front, I chose to go that route for 18 months. We launched the new school. It was innovative, but I found out there wasn't a funding plan in place to be able to build that new school every 3 years and really change Detroit. At that point, I met with Jalen Rose and his team, and I said, I need to get back to where I belong, a pre-K-12 public school district superintendent, because that's where I've spent 21 years of my life. So I wanted to make sure I explained that. I want the Romulus Community School District to be the number one school district in Michigan, the number one urban school district in Michigan as far as academic scoring. We can begin there, but then we can move up the the ladder. And I know the Rotary had a meeting, not a meeting, but a celebration with the basketball team. By the way, congratulations. I kept that paper. That was nice. It's nice to win, isn't it? Winning, and this is mine. I'm not going to give it to anybody. I'm sure it was nice that evening. And what a great thing for the Rotary to do. I'm a Paul Harris Fellow. I know what service above self means. That's sort of in part why I chose to do that other thing with Jalen for that short period of time. But the same thing, it didn't happen that, okay, guys, let's get together and let's practice and we'll win a state championship. It doesn't happen that way. It's preparation through and through. And then you have the fruits. Okay? It doesn't happen by accident. And I'm sure a number of you were there at Breslin to see that championship game. What a moment. There are three things that we need to concentrate on in order to be that #1 school district. The first thing is to align everything we do. We need to have literacy lessons in all subject areas embedded in all of our schools. The second thing, we need to do a lot of data. I call it data scrubbing. We need to know what the data is telling us, because that determines the kinds of things that we spend money on, especially when we have finite resources. And the third thing is community engagement. That community engagement needs to be intentional, ongoing. The first year I was at West Ottawa, we had 5,000 documented hours of volunteer time. My 11th year as superintendent of West Ottawa, we had 50,000 hours of volunteer documented time in our schools. We had celebrations to honor our volunteers, and it was funded by the business community. Big fishbowl. For so many hours, you'd have a slip of paper that would go in that fishbowl. And you had a chance to go on trips. I mean, it turned into such a huge thing. I'd get on the stage every year along with the other administrators. We'd make fools of ourselves for fun. But, obviously we didn't win anything. We were there to say thank you. Just as the first thing I said to you tonight was, thank you. A couple things about the internet. It is the great equalizer. Only 14% of people in America used the internet in 1995. 14%. 81% of people in America used the internet in 2012. And in a study that was done 2 years ago, this boggled my mind when I saw it. Children under the age of 5, 80% of them are on the internet at least once a week. So, it is the great equalizer. It is a way for us to be able to generate or to eliminate the achievement gaps wherever they exist. And that's how I chose to answer the first question. And I will be much quicker and much more succinct as we go.
Thank you.
The next question, why do you want to leave your current position, and what attracted you to our school district?
Well, I have served in the middle school, or middle cities executive board. Ray Tellman's the executive director, so I'm familiar with Romulus. I'm familiar with Carl and his work. And so I'm familiar through those people about Romulus. Being from Wayne County, I know this school district, not to the degree anywhere close to how you know it, but this is the kind of school district where the magic happens. This is the kind of school district where all of a sudden people just see the numbers on the backs of the opponent because we win. Nobody will even see us coming. I want to be involved as a superintendent of that kind of school district. I have not been involved in some searches for a short period of time because I needed to have a athletic-related surgery that required some intensive physical therapy. But now that's in the rearview mirror, and that's why I'm out here now. And I've had calls in the last 2 days about some other things, other positions. But I'm here tonight.
I have the next question.
Yes, ma'am.
Our community expects its superintendent to be an active participant in all school and community activities. How would you balance your time and place priorities on these activities?
Balancing my time has always been a bit of an issue because I want to be everywhere. I need to be. I'm not a behind-the-desk superintendent. I love seeing the pixie dust fall from the air and kids doing wonderful things, staff doing wonderful things, being at athletic events. I wrote actually an article for the Michigan School Board Journal called The Viability of Visibility. The viability of visibility. You have to walk the talk. You can't just say, oh, I'll be at things. You will know if I cannot be at something because I'm going to be at something else. Not only am I involved as far as being at, whether it's conferences, open houses, athletic events, performing arts, you name it. I'm also interested and have been involved in service organizations because that's part of the community engagement component. That's where the superintendent of schools is the ambassador to talk about the school district and where we're headed. I saw on the website about the murals in the high school that the kids created. Beautiful work. I would want to accent that with the actual work plan of the school district. What is it that we are working on? What is it that we are proud of? What is it that we want to accomplish? And we need to advertise that so that whether it's me walking around or anybody else, they know this is what's going on in Romulus Community Schools. So, by the way, kids tell you, they tell you, they're so incredibly honest. And my wife and I have 4 only children. That's humor. But there are 2 questions that I can ask any child and find out what's going on. The first question is, what are you learning about right now? The second question is, where do you go if you need help? And if that child is 6 or a senior, they respond. And I have learned more by asking that second question than, I could write a book. Kids tell you. They tell you if I don't get it, I don't get it. There's going to be a test tomorrow. I need to know these answers. I need help. I don't know where to go. But that gives me at least a perspective to be able to check on things. What I like to do when I visit classrooms as well, I don't just walk through the building and go, I visited Wick or Barth or Holbrook or Romulus or the high school or the middle school. I just don't walk through. I love to go into classrooms. What's a lot of fun is when I go into a classroom, I like to sit in the middle of the room. I don't walk to the back wall. You don't find out the dynamics of what's going on because there are different groups of kids in different parts of the room, especially in secondary classrooms. But you can learn a lot. They're just sitting right in the middle. You find out who the talkers are, who the people are that don't have a clue what should be going on, and who are the people that are trying to figure it out. there's just a lot that can happen, and it creates agendas for when, as administrators, we get together, or when we, as a board, superintendent, we talk about the kinds of things we should be working on.
In the development of a budget, what major goals and objectives do you establish? How many budgets have you developed, and how do they compare with what you would have to do here?
Budget development is always, what the driving force for me are students in classrooms. It's the learning environment. It's the resources that teachers need to have in order to be supported and affirmed. I've developed 21, and I've been involved in making cuts, and that's not fun. But we all know what's happened in Michigan as far as the economics of the times. All the more reason that we need to do that data scrubbing to find out where we're at, what we need to be working on, where we need to pour those precious few resources that we have control over. And that involves a lot of dialogue back and forth between superintendent and board. Was that?
Yeah, and the follow-up to that would be, during a period of decline in revenue, explain how you would determine priorities and reallocate resources.
There are two things that need to be going on concurrently when there's a decline. Did you say decline in revenue or decline in student population?
Decline in revenue.
Okay. We have to be prioritizing what it is that, well, to eliminate achievement gaps. I'll give you an example. Boston Community Schools. That is their strategic plan, is to eliminate achievement gaps. And they have poured their resources into doing that. What has to happen with having few resources, every employee needs to understand how that affects what they need to bring to be what I call being game ready every day. Because they impact whether the day is successful or not. So there are good things that can be promoted in that kind of atmosphere. And two of our kids, our own kids, have been in multi-age classrooms, and they've been very successful. That means talking to staff about developing more certification areas. So that, staff need to be comfortable. You just don't say to a staff member, okay, guess what, this year you're going to be in charge of some third graders and some fourth graders. There has to be training. So, like with an aircraft carrier, you have to be 10 miles ahead in order to have that aircraft carrier turn right or left. You have to have your finger on the pulse of where the revenues are, and then figure out, okay, how do we divide up our staff to be able to meet the needs of a district that needs to eliminate achievement gaps, that needs to be the best it can be.
Thank you.
And I have your next question,
Yes.
and that would be, please share with us your philosophy and experiences in collective bargaining.
Oh my goodness, I've been the chief negotiator on both sides of the table. I've been in situations where trash cans have been kicked down the hallway when something isn't going all that well. I was not the one kicking the trash cans, but there has to be rapport. There has to be respect. There has to be civility in order to be able to accomplish something where compromise is really the end-all game. And it's not a game when we're talking about economics. People need to understand exactly, that's why transparency is so important. We can't say, We don't have any money if we do. But if we don't have, or we have limited funds, we have to be very accurate based on our projections, our data scrubbing, on what the future looks like, or what the near future looks like. And then, when we go through the negotiations process, we find out, usually we get down to there's 3 or 4 major issues. And we talk about how can we make this work? Because we're all part of this pie. And so anyway, I'm not home with my fingers crossed waiting for a call. I like to be in the thick of it. And it's not because I'm a sick person. It's because I want people to know that I care.
Well, we have a follow-up to that.
Sure.
And it is, what has been your experience in dealing with grievances?
I've, depending on the situation or the place, I've been fortunate to not have a lot of grievances. You know, you try to problem solve ahead, you try to have an administrative team with their ears to the ground. You try to have those ongoing conversations with association leadership on a regular basis before there are issues. That's true issue management. Then, you know, there's no surprise. I mean, we can't have a surprise relationship. We have to be the model of a relationship that works. And it's the same thing with communicating with associations. It's a lot of ongoing conversation, so we don't have, you know, a stack of grievances.
Right. Thank you.
I know you answered some of these already probably in your opening statement, but I don't know if you want to take a drink right now because I have a feeling you're probably going to talk a little bit on this one. I want to wait your whistle. You good? Can you share with us your experience with deficit elimination plans?
Well, in Mount Clemens, we had to put together a deficit elimination plan, and again, everything has to be transparent. It needs to be communicated well ahead of time. That based on whoever I mean, you can play the blame game with the governor or the legislature or whatever. This is our situation, and so we need to put a plan together. I like to involve as many stakeholders, at least representatives from stakeholder groups. When I say stakeholder, is that, okay, as from stakeholder groups as possible, so that there's understanding about what it is that we're doing here. People have to know that first. That's why I keep saying, everyone, if they know the work plan here, if they know what our priorities are, then they know if we have a deficit elimination plan, these are the things that we no longer can do. But students in classrooms and having great experiences every day, that's what's on my mind all the time.
Please give an example when you were especially innovative with business and partnerships or grants.
During my career, I've been involved in being on the receiving end of close to $18 million in grants. One was a voluntary school partnership grant with 2 other school districts for $15 million. It was a federal grant over a 5-year period, and it was extended for a new 5-year period. It enabled for us in Mount Clemens to be able to put together a communications, creative arts, career academy. That was an emotional hook to get kids excited about coming to Mount Clemens. We then put together a medical bioscience career academy in partnership with Michigan State University. See, I get along with Michigan State. And that also is another emotional hook. You have to find out what the emotional hooks are and tie grant funds into doing something good for kids and for a school district. We also had a $1.6 million school improvement grant for our high school. And I know you have one here that's just concluded at your middle school. It's 119 pages long, just like your district improvement plan is 95 pages long, and your school improvement plans are 545 pages long. I've read them. We need to execute those plans. But as far as my understanding of grants, I like to compete. I'm a competitive person by nature, and there is money out there. We need to be, and it's not on your head, we, meaning as a school district, need to be aggressively working to secure grants at the state level and the federal level. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, I was the lead presenter. And this was with actually the Jen Rose Leadership Academy. And we got a $250,000 grant from the Walton Family Fund. That's Walmart. You know, they don't just give money away. You have to put a plan together. Who's going to be impacted? What are the results going to be? You know, bam, bam, bam. And it isn't on one page. It can be, you know, like that. But it's worth it when you get funds like that. Because it means kids are going to be better off. More opportunities, more staff get excited about where they work. That?
Yes, sir, thank
Okay.
you.
As superintendent, what do you see as your role in promoting student achievement?
Oh my goodness. It's, as I mentioned, it's on my mind all the time. Young people and having their dreams come true. We need to have a personalized education for all kids. And some kids don't learn at the same rate as other kids. That's where computers and e-readers and tablets and, let's see, that bring my, yes I did, iPhone, it's on mute, but on any iPhone or tablet, you can simply go to the App Store, go to Categories, go to Education, and you roll through not only hundreds, thousands of ways that we can personalize education for young people. There are applications for high schoolers, middle schoolers, elementary students, and preschoolers on iPhones, on tablets. We have to access that information. We are in the global competitive age, and we need to have technologically literate students. And the more we promote that, the more exciting it's going to get for people to want to have their kids be involved here in the Romulus Community Schools. So, how do you improve student achievement? You level the playing field by giving the kids the resources they need, the teachers, the training that they need to be able to, you know, the best teachers are the ones who say at the beginning of the year, the first day, we are going to learn a lot this year. Not, you're going to learn a lot this year, and I'm going to teach you that. No, it's not that way anymore. And I'm not saying anything in a disparaging way about teachers. Teachers need to be learning and growing every year too. So as young people are having that personalized education experience, so are teachers. There's a virtual utopia of lesson plans that teachers are already sharing in a global way. They're doing that despite whatever the curriculum is in school districts. And so are kids. They spend on average 7 hours a day on computers. That's outside the school day. They do that by choice. Last thing I want to mention, that is a great way to help develop portfolios, which is what universities look for, colleges look for, careers, workplace looks for. Beginning in 9th grade, imagine if every high school student had 4 letters of recommendation written. You know, it could be on a quarterly basis, it could be 2 times a year, 3 times a year, at least 2 times a year. Imagine, as a senior in high school, 8 letters of recommendation from whoever, like that first period teacher was, and how the words change in those letters. But during student, and I believe in students attending, if at all possible, parent-teacher conferences, it should be student-parent-teacher conferences, that students get to hear what was said in those letters. I have seen, I'll use one example. I thought a mom was going to faint. The tears were rolling down her cheeks as she was reading this letter of recommendation about her freshman son. She said, "He just isn't this way at home." That's when she got her composure back. But she got excited. And you know, it's work. It's a lot of hard work to write those letters of recommendation, but why start when kids are in their junior year, their senior year? Start earlier. Start using college language. Kids are up for it. We don't want kids powering down. And this happened to me in Mount Clemens. I was at a door, an entryway, when the kids were walking in. A senior walked by me and he goes, "Well, Doc, time to power down." And I just said, "Well, good morning, Matt," because I do learn names pretty fast. And it was about 2 years later, and 2 hours later, and I thought, oh my goodness, power down. He already had an idea that his day was not going to be a great day. That what he really was going to do to be happy and learn was going to happen after the school day ended. And I didn't catch it. But kids do say what's on their mind if you're visible and around.
Thank you. I have a follow-up to that.
Yes, ma'am.
How has your leadership improved the success of students in your present district?
Because I'm a collaborative leader, and I don't know if you're open to the idea of having a student rep be involved in board meetings. It could be seniors, 2-3 meetings at a time to talk about events at the high school and stuff. It's just another way of promoting the school district. But there are lots of ways that when kids see the superintendent mixing with them, watching what they're doing. I mean, I've been invited when I was in Groton, Connecticut. I was invited to talk to the team before the state championship game, which they won. And it had nothing to do with what I said. I just said to listen to the coach. I said more than that, but when you care, people know. When you don't care, people know that too. You can't fake out kids. So that's my leadership style. It's inclusive, it's collaborative. You get a lot of mileage by spending the time that I do.
Thank you.
Have you ever had the experience of eliminating a program that was no longer working or the district could no longer afford but was still loved? How did you handle the situation?
Loved by who? Can I ask? The program was loved by, what, by
Any particular subject?
kids,
Or
community?
staff.
Just a program that
Kids.
was, okay. Can you repeat the question so I
Sure.
get context?
Have you ever had the experience of eliminating a program that was no longer working or the district could no longer afford but was still loved? How did you handle it?
Sure. In West Ottawa, there was a woodshop program. And it was great. And by the way, he just happened to be the head football coach. Just had a way of involving kids. And, but it was an expensive elective, and it was just one of those programs that we weren't able to fund because we had to pour more money into literacy. But he just shifted gears because he knew that those kinds of things happened, and he had developed other skills, other areas where he taught other classes. And he actually he became a literacy coach. And he was actually able to move about the building more. And for him, it turned out to be pretty cool because he was able to generate a lot of interest in the football program. But there aren't any simple answers sometimes when a program is loved. But especially with what we need to do now to eliminate achievement gaps, and with whether it's kids that are accelerated or thought to be accelerated, kids that are thought to be special needs kids, we need to make sure that we do what needs to be done for all of the kids, and sometimes maybe not in the quantity that we'd like to, but sometimes finances dictates. So it's not those are not popular nights for a superintendent or board member to go home.
Now the next question. How many times in the past semester were you in a classroom, and please describe what you learned from those visits?
Well, in my most recent position, I taught a leadership class every morning. And we concentrated on Sean Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens. We used, everyone had computers, and all the students had projects. I also taught a research and technology class. So I taught 2 classes every day in my most recent position. I, if at all possible, would be interested in teaching, and it would probably be more as like a guest kind of teacher from time to time, because I simply love to be interacting with kids. And kids see you in a different light. They realize you're just not this walking suit.
Thank you.
I have the next question, and again, we recognize you may have answered some of these questions, so if you want to say that you think you've already addressed it, that's okay.
You know, I don't even know where you're at with your
Yeah,
your 24.
You're right about just a little less than halfway and a little more than halfway the time, but you're still.
Yeah, we're at about the
You're
50.
okay.
Okay.
Student achievement is very important to us. What action would you be responsible for to enhance student learning? Please give us examples of how you have addressed the achievement gap in your district during your most recent.
In every district that I've been involved in, we have improved signage, putting our priorities up on the walls in the schools. It might seem like just a crazy thing to do, but you'd be surprised how people talk about, I mean, they stop, they read, these are the things that are important in this school, these are the things that are important grade by grade, these are the things that you can do if you want to volunteer. The more things you put up on the walls, I want the walls to talk, is what it boils down to. And like at the high school level, if doorways to classrooms can be sort of dressed up with university colors, college colors of the college that the staff member attended, all the more they're like portals. It changes the atmosphere in schools when you have those kinds of things going on. Could you repeat the question? I want to make sure I...
The question was, give us examples, I'm sorry, the whole question, student achievement is important to us. What action would you be responsible for to enhance student learning? And to give us examples of how you've addressed the achievement gap.
Sometimes you simply have to be a good listener as a superintendent. I had a teacher approach me in West Ottawa that wanted to start a chorus for children in grades 3 through 5. She knew there wasn't the funds to be able to offer that program. She wanted to do it before school at one of our elementaries. And I listened to her and I said, well, Bobby, I hope it works. Try it, see what happens. It became, and actually one of our own kids ended up becoming involved. It became a group called Kids Healing Kids. It became a group of 150 third to fifth grade kids that sang songs, that taped those songs, and they then not only performed with different organizations around the state, because they were such a good singing group, they visited hospitals, and they gave those tapes to kids that were sick, kids that were going through tough times. The domino effect was so incredible, and it was a teacher's idea, and all I did was listen and say, green light, try it. How does that translate into improving student achievement? Those kids became more interested in what was going on in school because they were able to do something that was different. And sometimes that's, we don't really have, we don't have really all the ideas as far as what interests kids. We have to listen to kids. We have to, that's why I'm such a big believer in student voice. It translates into improved achievement because that emotional hook becomes deeper and kids become more involved. I don't know that a single one of those 150 kids missed school because they were so involved in that singing organization. They felt after a while that what they were doing was very important stuff. So I don't know if that answered the question, but it's an example of how one thing leads to another.
Thank you.
Maybe you kind of touched on this one too. What is your expertise with current technology?
It's, oh my goodness, it's a means to an end. We all need to be more technologically literate all the time. And this, I know, will get maybe a mixed review, not by you necessarily, but some teachers are wide open to learning from young people. I don't know that all are. Am I right or wrong? I don't know. Maybe they all are. Let me just say all teachers are, because I don't want to get into trouble. Young people can teach teachers how to do things with technology sometimes that teachers don't know how to do. Teachers can teach each other. We have lots of experts. Think in the Romulus Community Schools. How many experts are there in technology? I mean, are there 5? Are there 10? Are there just people with credentials? Or are there people who are, to some degree, self-taught? A lot of kids and adults are self-taught and can do amazing things. But you know what? We don't ask. I think that we can learn a lot. I've learned a lot from my youngest son. When I get into deep water, I say, Alex, bail me out, help me. And you know what he refuses to do? He refuses just to say, okay, Dad, get out of that chair. He doesn't do it. He gets behind me and goes, okay, step 1. And I go, oh, come on. And he'll go, Dad. Step 1, do this. Step 2, you do that. Step 3, you do that. Step 4, you do that. And you know, after we do it maybe 10 times, and I get it, I've learned something new. So kids are teachers of technology. Teachers are teachers of technology for each other. We all learn every year. That would be part of my mantra here.
And there's a follow-up question to this, which is, what is your idea of the classroom of the future?
Ooh, ever heard of crowdsourcing? Crowdsourcing was actually, it's actually a new way of inviting. Well, let me use an example. Somebody invents something, but they don't know all the stages, all the aspects, all the pieces to the full invention. But they have part of an idea, the germ of an idea. Somebody else comes along and does this part. Somebody else does this part. Somebody does this part. And they keep track of who does what, and that's how they divide up the profit. That's an example of crowdsourcing with developing technology tools. People are not and see, my older son works at the Los Angeles Film School. And one thing he told me the other day was manufacturers aren't as concerned anymore about knowing everything from A to the alphabet, you know? If they know A, B, and C, they know somebody else will tie into D, E, F. And, you know, other people will kick in. They just throw it out there. That's called crowdsourcing. I see that as one of the things that will happen in the future with classrooms. And it isn't going to cause chaos. It's going to cause more people to be invested in being innovative, being flexible adapters, being discovering what their true passions are, their talents. So it's there's we could talk all night actually on this topic, but there's the classroom of the future may not be There'd be a combination of places with bricks and mortar, and also all the things that can already be done online. And it doesn't mean that people lose jobs. It means the people that had a job doing one thing now can do a combination of things. Okay? It's not a way to say, okay, we only need half the teachers here. No, no, no. There are lots of new ways to be able to utilize the talents of the people that we have here and really have this place be a place with elite educators. Does that make sense?
Okay, what is the role and the importance of extracurricular activities in an educational program?
Well, for me, it kept me in school. I made some bad decisions at a young age, and my mom happened to be a first grade teacher in the building when I made one of those bad decisions. But and she's bless her heart, she's 5'1". She's passed now, but I know I really disappointed her. It killed me, but it also taught me that, you know, parents can just do so much. Kids make decisions, they make choices. Sometimes they do the right thing, sometimes they don't. But it's what happens. It's almost like I was falling through the air. And an assistant principal, his name was George Sarkozy, caught me. And he said, okay, Charlie, you're going to start jumping rope. He started, and I think it's illegal now to do, but he had boxing night, was Friday nights. He was there. And if you had a problem with another child, you could. Okay, great. Different time, but people would put, and you know, there was this young man, we both happened to like the same girl. Anyway,
Girl.
his name was Rocky Bellino, and we both, instead of having an issue that disrupted school, we signed up on a sheet for Friday night. And we put gloves on, headgear, mouth gear, all that stuff. We were all protected. 3 minutes time of boxing. Nobody was hurt. We were laughing like crazy. We became best friends through high school, played sports. All because an assistant principal figured out a way to be able to get people, young people, to have a means to be able to release that pent-up energy that some of us have. So that's my story. I've never said I walked on water.
Please share with us your experiences in working with all special needs students, and have you developed alternative methods to deliver services to meet their needs?
Sure. I mean, when I look around the room here, I don't see everybody wearing their IQs on their backs. You know, it's when everyone knows they get a fair shake, when everyone knows that if someone is identified, that they have an IEP. The President of the United States cannot change an IEP, but it sure better be followed. It means there are particular services that need to be provided to that young person to be able to have a great day at school. And I'm a huge believer in following IEPs. I'm a huge believer in making sure that we figure out when something isn't happening, what are we doing about it? We can't ignore and pretend. We need to figure out what the issues are, pay attention to them, provide the resources, and kids accomplish usually much more than anybody ever imagines. Just as adults do. I mean, look at you. I mean, you're serving on a board of education. I don't know what caused you to want to serve on a board of education, but it's what, Thursday night? It's about 70 plus degrees out there, and you're in here.
Thanks.
But at least you had some pizza or something. But, you know, we all choose how we spend our time, what we get involved in. And it's a matter of making sure that we identify as early as possible young people that need support, and that we make sure that we have the adults that should be providing that support to the extent that the IEP says. And you know what? That's why not only special needs students should have IEPs, that's why I believe all young people need to have individualized education plans. Because we can't just look at a room and know, you know, you need this, you need that. And it doesn't work that way.
Thank you.
I have your next question. Can you share with us any methods of accountability and motivation you have initiated successfully to ensure the delivery of a quality instructional program?
The Charlotte Danielson evaluation model is perfect. Well, I don't know that it's perfect. It's a very good evaluation model because it involves reflection. It involves ongoing conversation between the administrator and the teacher. It involves the educator putting together growth plans and defining what it is that they want to work on that year. The administrator ties into what he or she believes the teacher should be working on, and they form that chemistry, because then they understand, okay, this is the agenda. And by the way, at the district level, this is the work plan. These are the things that are important across the district. Let's say literacy lessons. At the school level, these are the things that are important. Now, at the individual level, what is it that you're going to do to make sure that you're a part of the solution, that you're, you know, an important piece to the puzzle? So, the Charlotte Danielson evaluation model, which you have identified as being important here, is something that I'm a big advocate of. And I've used it in a number of school districts with very good success. Charlotte Danielson is very expensive. I've talked to her on the phone, but it's like Marzano's 9 or DeFore's professional learning communities, which you also are into. I think Marzano is $25,000 for a half a day. You know, so I've talked to him on the phone too.
Thank you.
Describe your past relations with administrators, teachers, support staff, and their unions.
Pancake breakfasts have always been great with bus drivers. You know, there are traditions that you, they're always surprised. People are surprised when we eat together. It's like having dinner together, having a meal together. When we celebrate each other and say thank you to each other for the difference that people make. Imagine being a bus driver. You have your back to the kids every day. And you're supposed to do a great job of getting kids to and from school. And by the way, part of that relationship is that, like, as your superintendent, first day of school, I'd hop on a bus at 6:12. I think that's about your earliest bus, your second for high school, and go to the high school, walk around there, hop on another bus, go to another school. That's my first day. Then I go to the office. But when people see that you hop on the bus, they see you in a different way. They sort of, it's like shock and awe, you know, and that isn't the reason. It's just curiosity. I'm very curious about the interaction because everyone is important. If a bus driver is yelling at the kids or the kids are out of control, then by the time kids get to school, they're not going to be in a great mood. Mm-hmm. Or there's some kind of dynamic that needs to be figured out fast. Mm-hmm. One example of helping support staff, bus drivers in particular, we had cameras on each bus, but only one camera had film in it. But all of them had red lights on. Students never knew which bus had the film rolling. You know, there are lots of ways to be able to make sure that we have order and discipline and that we have a safe environment. As far as with custodians, my dad was a custodian. Everyone needs to be appreciated. Secretary, my wife's mom was a secretary for 19 years. Everyone needs to feel that they're valued. And so I try to model paying attention to as much as you can around you, because it all makes a lot of sense if you really do pay attention to what's going on. And bottom line, yeah, I have positive relations with support staff, with professional staff, with community members, with business groups, because I don't make it up as I go along. That's hard to remember.
I have the next question. Gaining commitment from others is essential for a superintendent, whether it's from school personnel or the community. What techniques have you used to gain acceptance of ideas or plans? And give us an example of how you used one of those techniques.
Well, in West Ottawa, we went from 2,500 students to 7,500 students in 11 years. And we had 3 successful bond issues for $110 million. It didn't happen because I sent a note out. We put a task force together. We involved representatives from stakeholder groups, and we explained, this is where we're at, this is what the data says, this is what we need to be prepared for. We put a rationale together. That's how you get things done. Let's see, could you repeat the question again?
I sure can.
Thanks.
Gaining commitment from others is essential for a superintendent, whether it is from school personnel or the community. What techniques have you used to gain acceptance of ideas or plans? And give us an example of how you use those techniques.
Thanks for repeating. When you have programs or assemblies, and there was a school district where people debated whether or not we needed to have a performing arts center. That was thought to be frilly. And we talked about how young people would become more invested, more interested, how satisfy the community would be to go to events, and it actually could be a moneymaker. And that was one of those bond issues that was successful. And we developed that Performing Arts Center, and events were actually, we were about 3 years ahead with some dates. That like the chamber wanted to use the facility. It seated like 700, and the place would be filled for a national speaker to come in and talk to an area chamber. But business groups like to be able to use facilities. I've always enjoyed being connected with faith-based groups, and in Mount Clemens, I had a group, and the acronym that we decided on was CAST, clergy and schools together. And we talked about casting a net. We met every month in the high school for an hour, in the school. And we had clergy in the school, and we talked. And you know what? Clergy then started talking about, okay, the kinds of things that they were talking about at their various churches. The themes connected with themes that we had, that we were working on in school, until we had more of a common language. The last example, in my first school district, I visited 1,000 homes in 6 weeks. I did. Daylight to dark. And it wasn't because I was the only person who could communicate what the school district was about, but it was because the district had had a number of millage failures in a row, and we were on the ropes. And then they had hired me as superintendent. And so in Memphis, Michigan, I just started going door to door. I didn't have a pamphlet. I had legal pads. And I started taking down names, because I asked questions. What do you feel the challenges are here? What do you feel is good that's going on here? And how can you help? Guess what? I had legal pads full of volunteers as a result of going door to door. Plus the joke was there was a lot of heavy vacuuming going on because people started hearing that I was walking around. So one thing leads to another when you do those things.
Just want to interrupt, say we have about 6 questions left.
Okay, thank you.
The next question is, how often and by what means will you communicate with the board?
I would want to follow the practices that you're comfortable with, that you've had success with in the past, that you would want continued. I've used, what I've used personally, is a Friday communication called Boardline. It's electronic, or it can be paper. It's your choice. It talks about the big things, the little things. But there's also, I understand you have committee of the whole meetings and an action meeting each month, rather than committees. Is that correct?
Yes.
It's supposed to be, yes.
Okay. Well, whatever you're comfortable with. Beyond that, individually, one of the assignments I would ask of each of you, as your superintendent, would be for you to identify 5 people that you want me to meet with, to ask what they think of the school district and what they think the issues are in the school district. So, in other words, we have a relationship where we need to model that we work together, that we problem solve, that we communicate very directly with each other, that we're available to each other at a drop of a hat. There are times, and if it's a negative situation or a devastating situation, You're going to get a call late at night from me, individual calls. One school district I take it personally, I lost 7 students in 1 year. Every means possible, things happen. And I made those calls. But anyway, as far as communication, it's critically important.
Thank you. The follow-up would be, if you and the board disagree on an issue, how would you resolve it?
If I don't have the votes, it's what you believe. And maybe I didn't promote in a successful manner something that I felt was important. I would hope that those times would be few and far in between, that we would have a rich enough discourse that just like in eliminating grievances, that we'd be talking with each other about what the priorities should be, and we pay attention to those priorities. We'd have planning sessions or retreats, which can be right on site, as long as you get food occasionally, where we talk about these are the important things for the Romulus Community Schools this year. And I would then be speaking to those things, or members of the board would speak to those things at each board meeting, so that, again, that transparency needs to be there.
Okay. My question tonight is, how have you gone about bringing change in the school district? I think we've discussed that a lot.
You have to have desire, courage, and self-confidence as a superintendent. You have to talk about some things that make people uncomfortable sometimes, but will make a difference. And I've also found that young people are great presenters. One welcome back session, there was a kindergartner. No, she was first grader. Welcomed back the high school teachers. She stood on a chair and talking into a microphone. You could hear a pin drop in that room. Every high school teacher couldn't wait to be her teacher. And maybe some of those teachers changed just how much effort they were going to put into getting going. But there are lots of ways to connect.
Okay, my last question of the night would be, how would you support the building administrators and also be supportive of teachers?
Every educator needs to be supported, affirmed. Every administrator, we have team meetings on a regular basis where we talk about the issues of the day, their time to different points in time during the year. But again, we have to be transparent with each other. We need to have growth plans that just as I would have a growth plan with you, where there are goals and metrics that you would be assessing me on. The same thing would be true with the relationship with the administrators and with the teachers. But it wouldn't be a surprise relationship. Everything would be up front. And, just because I'm the superintendent, it doesn't mean I have the best idea at a meeting. Anyone in the room can have the best idea. So, affirmation is very important. I never do something negative to embarrass somebody in front of other people. There's no gain in that, ever. That's human dignity.
How do you communicate with staff and community?
By being visible, being involved, being connected, developing networks, developing partnerships, being that person who's available to talk about, this is what we're doing here in the Romulus Community Schools. And I'd like to talk to you about 3 of those things. And guess what? I'm also here to sign some people up because we have a few things coming up in the next month, and we need some volunteers. I'm not afraid to do that. And you know, sometimes people volunteer that you never imagined would. But sometimes people simply, they're never asked.
Thank you.
What are we down to? Am I okay, Thomas? Okay.
Yeah, we're, there's
Okay.
I'm a good time. What do you do to draw in non-school community members?
Well, you know, all these questions have been great. But that one is special in that I think schools turned a lot of people off. It was almost like, drop your child off, we'll give them back to you when they're 16, 17, whatever. Those days are over. We need to do some very intentional kinds of things to make our schools the most inviting place in town. We invite, we invite, we invite. We don't assume we're going to have everyone just pile in the first time we invite. It doesn't happen that way. It's like concentric circles. Things grow over time, and people realize, I'm valued. When I come here, I get something out of this. And people talk to other people. It's like a virus, a real positive virus. It works.
Thank you.
And then you celebrate. You celebrate the fact that people got connected. And then they want to come back even more.
I have the last question.
Yes, ma'am?
Please talk about what you would do the first 100 days on the job as our superintendent of schools. After 100 days, what would you hope to have accomplished?
I have that on 2 pages. I have that laid out. A lot of listening and learning. I'd be happy to. I only brought. I don't know if I brought it from inside. I don't think I did. But it would be a time to listen and learn, not a time to come in and just say, okay, wow, are we going to do a lot of things different? First, you have to find out where things are at. And then I would report out to the Board of Education my findings. But I actually do have that developed on 2 pages of paper. And I think it's probably in the car. I think I brought it in here. One of those things, you know? Nope. It's in the car. But if you want to put me to that test, I'll go get it. But there has to be a very intentional process when you are learning about the school district. And I would approach things in a very positive manner and expect the best and get in front. One thing I would do, I would send out a message that any employee in the school district that wanted to spend a little time with me could do that. That's a good thing to do during the summer. And people take advantage of that. It's a great way to develop relationships. And I find out what people are interested in. So it fulfills my need as a very curious
We're now at the portion where we would like to take a few minutes to provide you with an opportunity to ask any questions you might have of the board.
I do have a couple. They're not complicated. I'm curious. Who was your favorite teacher when you went to school and why?
I'll start that one.
Wow, you're going way back from me.
That's okay.
Her name was Judith Farkas, my 5th grade teacher, and she, back in the 70s, when we were looking, our district was, I wasn't raised in Romulus, experienced a lot of cuts, and art, gym, and music were among those cuts. And Thursday was Music Appreciation Day in her classroom. And she taught me the appreciation and the love that I have for a wide array of musical tastes, including back then it was Cat Stevens and the Kingston Trio. And she actually made tea for the entire class. Bigelow Constant Comment tea.
All right.
And it's still my favorite. And she has stuck out as my favorite teacher from the 5th grade.
See, and it came right to mind. Right to
Well,
mind.
it's funny because we were just talking about it while we were having
Oh, okay.
pizza. For an entirely different reason. But we won't go there.
Okay. Anybody else?
Oh, I'll go.
I thought we were going around the
Yeah, I
table.
thought we were going around.
Oh, I
Oh,
did
go ahead.
one too. I mean, I think
Ladies
mine,
first.
mine was 5th grade too, I think. Her name was Mary Peterson. And I think it was possibly because we did a lot of hands-on type things in her classroom. Her room was a zoo, and I mean, literally with animals. I don't know, I think she brought out, just because of the hands-on opportunities, and I'm probably more of that type of a learner than I am a,
Sure.
but I can distinctly remember even individual lessons in her class.
Neat. You're probably a very tactile person.
She made a big impact, I think, just
Yeah.
in different things that she taught us.
For me, that question's tough because I think at every stage of my educational career, I was touched by a teacher that I learned something from, whether it was in elementary school, junior high, in high school. But I think if there was one that I had fun with Ms. Moncaci, and it was spelled different than yours, but she was our theater and dramatic arts teacher, and that was something I always just looked forward to doing every class and performing in front of our high school and just performing in class with each other. And I found a bond with all those guys and girls that I was in class with that we still kind of
Neat.
are goofy and things like that together. But I think every teacher that I dealt with in Romulus schools, because I got to graduate from Romulus, that I took something away, I think, from every teacher that I ever had. So, and administrators also, principals, and I think back then our curriculum was so full. Back then we had programs that aren't around anymore, but it was a big caring time back then. Our staff, and that's how I felt as a student. But I still see that with our administrators now, how much they care with the kids, and I just you don't realize that when you're growing up, how much they affected you.
Thank you.
I'm also a proud graduate of Romulus. I had a teacher named Florence Satterley. She retired a few years ago. And she taught us, not only me, but a group of us girls that were pretty tight. She just pushed us to just do a different level. And just kind of, I don't know, just mentor, not that I need mentoring, because I had a mom that was dynamic, so I didn't need that, but it was just something that she did academically to push us to that next level. So, and that's who I remember.
Well, I went to Northwestern High School in Detroit, and my teacher was Miss Meredith Campbell. She was my dance teacher, and I was fortunate enough to have her from 9th grade to 12th grade because dance was an actual program back then.
Super.
but she was also my cheerleading coach and my track coach. And she became like a second mother to me. She commanded excellence. She pushed us. She developed character. And I think I can actually say I feel like who I am today is what she imparted in me. So, she made a huge imprint, not only in my life, but on my heart. And so that was my favorite teacher.
Mine was my high school shorthand teacher, Mrs. Wilson. I don't know, she made the class fun. She was a much older teacher, and we kept in touch for years and years and years afterwards. Even. It was just, there was a bonding.
Hi. Mine was, actually, I graduated from Romulus High School as well, proud graduate. And my favorite teacher was Miss Bujak. Miss Bujak was a mathematics teacher. And what I loved about her is she was a teacher that didn't believe in just computers. She believed in learning how to do things by hand. So when it came to problems, whether it was problem solving, reading problems, or whatever, she taught us to do it step by hand. So when I went to take my tests for standardized tests, and they told us to put away our calculators and cleared out all of our equations, I knew how to do the problems without even having a calculator. And I loved her passion for teaching. She would stay after school. She wasn't getting paid for it. She would literally teach to the fact where she would fall asleep in the chair as she's talking to you. And I just saw her passion. And, even when I graduated and I needed help further in my beginning stages in college, I came back to her to brush up on some things, and she was right there. So to me, that's a teacher that really cares about her students in general, no matter what step their student is in life.
Yeah. And also, too, we have two fine ones in the back that I have to keep reminding that I graduated because they still want to try to tell me things. Can't get away from them.
Some themes. Did you hear the themes that came out as far as the people that made an impact on your life? They spent time, they cared about you in a deep way, way beyond what people are credentialed to do. They cared about you as an individual person. That's huge. It's a life-changing kind of event when you have somebody like that. Now, I'll just throw in, mine was a third grade teacher. I had a crush on her. I invited her to a birthday. It was the one time my mom and dad allowed me to have a birthday party at our home. I invited her to the birthday party. Okay? So that self-confidence started when I was way too young. But she actually came to the house, was there for 30 seconds, and gave my parents a book to give me. And said, say, happy birthday, and she just gave me a little wave. I've never forgotten that. It just, how neat. Last question. And I know I'm into a little overtime here. What would make you smile 3 years from now as a member of the Romulus Community Schools Board? I said the questions wouldn't be difficult. That's the last one.
I think me being probably, I don't know, a senior member, I think it's the legacy that I will leave on how I did the best I possibly could for the students in this district and made the best decisions to further our district. So in 3 years, or if I'm here, or if I'm not here, I can smile and say, oh yeah, that legacy kind of lives on. They're actually, we have a good board that's continuing those things and those beliefs. So that's what would make me smile. And if I had some grandkids in 3 years, that might make me smile too. No, I take that back.
think that, for me, it would be the testimonies of our students and them having, you know, those success stories, or just being able to, you know, fulfill their dreams and what they saw themselves being able to do, and coming back and sharing those with us.
I think just having the kids, when you go to the fairs and the kids say, "Hello, Mrs. Kraut," and they remember me, that, to me, that makes my day.
I would agree with that, and I would say 3 years from now, what would make me smile is if we actually had a board meeting where we didn't have to talk about money.
Amen.
Amen to that.
Just one meeting, just one.
That it wouldn't be an issue.
I agree with everything everybody else just said.
I'm gonna write that down.
Thank you.
Ms.
Do
Miller?
I have a moment for a closing? Just a-
There are no questions from the audience, so yes, you have a moment to make your closing.
I just wanted to, thank you, Ms. Miller. I just wanted to give an example. Gabby Douglas. Does everybody in the room here know what she did?
Miss Olympia.
Did she do it by herself? Has she ever said she did anything by herself? No. She's an Olympic champion, but she was a member of a team. She had supportive family, supportive coaches, support. She was affirmed. And then, at crunch time, she was spectacular. She was special. That's what the Romulus Community Schools kids can be. They all can be special. And I treat it very personally that it's our combined job to find out how every child here is special and help them have their dreams come true. Because nobody can do it by themselves. And I really appreciate meeting you tonight.
Thank you.
You said? Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a 5-minute recess, potty break. We're going to be in recess for 5 minutes.